everybody, it's Ken here. Hope everyone is doing well so far. As for this vlog, I want to start off by just talking about how my day's been. Today, I just saw Top Gun Maverick with my parents and my sister, which was pretty amazing as last week, I think a couple weeks ago, I just saw Top Gun, the original Top Gun on Netflix, which is an 80s classic, involves fighter jets and starring Tom Cruise, starred Val Kilmer, Karen McGillis, I think there's Meg Ryan in it, and a bunch of other actors in the movie. And it's a really big hit, as my mom grew up in the 80s, and so did my dad. So they were very familiar with Tom Cruise and his career, as well as the movie Top Gun. And so seeing, Top Gun Maverick with them was a really interesting experience. I mean, I'll argue that Top Gun Maverick is, in many ways, a lot better than the original movie. It took everything that the original Top Gun did and made it even better. And it had a lot of emotional weight to it too, especially when you consider the fact that it's been a little more than 30 years since the original Top Gun, and then you have Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer in it, who are both the two original stars from the original Top Gun movie, and then you have a new cast of actors who all did pretty well. They've held their own in this movie. And it was very interesting, as it was a way to reunite, bring Top Gun to younger audiences, as well as giving something for the old audiences to connect with. So I thought that's pretty interesting. I think Miles Teller, did a pretty good job as Rooster, especially since he resembles Goose a lot. The actor who played Goose. So I thought it was just really cool that in some ways he was sort of the embodiment of Goose's son. I could see it there, and there were a lot of callbacks to the original Top Gun. And not to mention, Top Gun is one of those movies that has something for everyone, much in the same way as Forrest Gump did. There's action, there's patriotism, there's drama, there's romance, there's some comedy, there's suspense, and overall movie that just feels very optimistic. And there's also themes like friendship and family and trust, and just honestly one of those movies that just feels good, and really makes me feel amazed. I wouldn't want to be a pilot, but it did feel amazing in the movie, just watching Top Gun Maverick. And honestly, I think it's one of those rare sequels that actually improves upon the original, and in many ways expands it while still honoring the source material. So overall, I think it's a really good movie, really fantastic, and honestly, pretty much love it. So yeah. But anyway, that's kind of what I've been doing lately. And also, I've been just dealing with work and just trying to study and just trying to get by for the summer, as I'm working as a research assistant for a physics professor who's doing some dark matter related research. So it's really good stuff that, sure, yes, it's not, say, like a data science internship, but it is something that allows me to use a lot of that data science thinking into solving working with real world data. So it's just a little something for me to do for the summer while I focus on personal development and just trying to enjoy life for a while after just the fact that I've just finished my spring 2022 semester. So just something to keep me going. And on top of that, I've been reading this book, Forecasting, which talks about working with time series data with R, which I read primarily just to understand, what I'm doing for work at East Bay, as the research project I'm working on involves time series data to some degree. So I thought about reading this book to kind of get a sense of it. In fact, I even bought it because there's just something about having a physical book that beats having a digital copy. Yeah, sure, having a digital copy saves space, but at the same time, I like to have a physical book to hold and bookmark and reference. Not to mention to have a really small screen that I'm using, since I have a Surface Pro tablet. So trying to read while you're trying to code is probably not convenient. So I like to have something separate with me. So having a physical book does help in many ways. Not to mention that I think I would probably see myself using this book in the future, especially since time series data is really important. It's used in economics, used in, a meteorology to look at the weather over time, and just finance data, and just so many different areas in which you have what you would consider your predictor variable be a unit of time, and then you're trying to look at, let's say, a certain response variable as time progresses. So there's a lot of uses for it, and so I thought, I'm probably going to have some use for this book at some point in the future. And even if I don't, well, it's great. It's good to at least know and learn and get more ways in which you can leverage R to do all kinds of data analysis. So anyway, so if you're interested in time series data, highly recommend looking into this book. And if you're not taking the time series course or anything, especially since the master's program, especially right now, doesn't have a time series course or a course that's specifically dedicated to time series data, I highly recommend looking in this book. It's pretty resourceful. It basically is a beginner's course, especially for anyone who doesn't know how to R. So you do not have to be familiar with R to understand this book, as they'll tell you everything on how to get started with using R quickly to look at time series data and all of that. Overall, really good book. Highly recommend checking it out. All right, so I've been kind of doing it on the side, and overall, I've just been kind of getting through the day every now and then. Wake up, work out, take some walks around the neighborhood, hang out with my classmates, whether we hang out in one of my classmates' apartments, watching The Mandalorian, maybe going out for walks, maybe going on road trips every now and then. Just anything just to keep my mind off of school for a while, as I think that when it comes to life, I think there's a lot more to it than just going for the degree and just going for getting a piece of paper. As yes, sir, it's nice to get good grades and to get that degree in it. I mean, this is why we're all here, to get the degree. But I feel that there's a lot more to it, and I think part of the other side of the equation, besides just getting the material goods, say the good grades, the degree, that piece of paper that proves that you've completed all the coursework for this program, and getting a good job and all that, I think something else that, and besides those things, would be personal development. As I'm someone who values emotional human connection and just being introspective and really recognizing that there's a lot for me to learn on a personal level in terms of personal skills, working with other people, and just figuring out what kind of person I want to be, which are really essential to me and something that I've been working on during the summer. As one of the issues that I've had, especially growing up, was just figuring out how do I have meaningful friendships, though. Because growing up, I was bullied a lot because I had a learning disability. I'm autistic, and I've had kids make fun of me because I learn at a much slower pace than other students did, and I've got sensory overload, and my mind works in a different way where I have trouble with understanding social cues and being able to deal with emotions and dealing with people, which made it difficult for me to have meaningful interactions and was a source of bullying for a lot of my childhood and in high school to some degree. And given all these experiences, coupled with some traumatic experiences related to the bullying that I got, gave me frequent periods of loneliness, to the point where growing up, I didn't have a good model for what good friendships look like. So growing up, I often ended up with really awful people that, sure, not all of them were bad, but they just weren't the right people for me to hang around. Not to mention, I also grew to have some addiction problems, though. I mean, lately I'm kind of been having a little bit of a drinking problem, I'll admit. Because I've been increasingly a bit more alcoholic over the past couple of months and years. especially since, in addition to a lot of the traumatic experiences I had growing up, I was addicted to, some alcohol. I vaped quite a bit, back when I was much younger, during my undergraduate years. And I just had all these personal problems that related to a lot of the traumatic things I experienced growing up. And adding on that, I had a breakup from my first relationship. My life, during my last year of undergraduate and kind of moving forward after that, a little bit after that, kind of fell into a bit of shambles. So if that's a good way to put it, where I was pretty aimless and I was very unsure about what do I wanted to do with my life and how do I deal with myself. As for a while, I was able to keep myself mentally stable by being able to drown out these problems with schoolwork. I mean, whenever there's something going on, the way I keep myself motivated and keep myself from being, like haggard and just basically doing nothing with my life, or being so stuck in my head that I don't make any decisions for myself or don't take action. One way I deal with that is by getting myself addicted to schoolwork. It sure sometimes leads me to points where I overwork myself, but it did give me a sense of purpose during a time when I hardly had much purpose or had a sense of what my purpose is. As there's just something addicting about just having work to do and being rewarded for it. There's just something about that. Just seeing what you're made of and just securing evidence for yourself that no matter how tough life is, you're still capable of great things. Something that counters the negative thoughts that I would get whenever I have low self-esteem. So schoolwork was sort of a way to keep myself in check in some ways. But then after I graduated with a bachelor's degree, a lot of these mental health problems just kind of reemerged because schoolwork drowned them out. And then now that I was out of school, those personal problems reemerged, and then came, personal problems, addiction, and so many other things that really spoke to how hurt I was emotionally and how I was just so lost and lonely that I just wasn't quite living up to what I wanted for myself. And yeah, I started, getting addicted. I started getting into alcoholic drinks. I've been addicted to a lot of video games. I mean, not that video games are bad, but too much of it can be really draining, especially when you have a lot of personal issues you have to work through. And so many other things that really put me in a deep state of depression for the rest of the year, especially since this was during the time of COVID and I was graduating virtually. And I was at a point in my life where I wasn't sure what do I do next with my life after I got my bachelor's degree. And it took me a while to really find something to do. And that was going to grad school to be a statistician. Just finding some new purpose for me to look forward to, or find something that in many ways is emotionally fulfilling to me. And statistics ended up being that saving grace for me that helped me to overcome that addiction. I know this is really dramatic, but it really did, because my interest in statistics came at a point where I was demotivated from my applied math major, as initially I came into applied math major because I didn't want to be a teacher and I wanted to do some applied research. And so I ended up jumping into applied math after that. But then at some point, I kind of became more fatigued with it, especially when the concepts got so abstract where I just didn't see myself working in applied math anymore. And then at that point, I was introduced to statistics, which ended up being a lot more fulfilling because statistics has a lot of applications, not just in the more technical stuff, which can be cool, but maybe too abstract for me to understand or to see how it has a direct impact on society. As statistics, it can be used to study issues in education. It can be used to look at issues related to healthcare. It can be used to inform decision making in politics or government and all of that. So applications that really show how how much of a creative outlet statistics can be, even though it's a very technical major. How socially conscious the field of statistics can be. And it was in that I just really started to find that purpose that really gave me something to work for, to live for, or something to keep me going. And so it's from there that I decided to look into grad schools to figure out, my path. As I already had all this applied math background, and I'm trying to find a program that accommodates it, because I didn't want to go back to undergrad and get a statistics degree. I wanted to take what I have and try see if I could find a way to squeeze into a statistics degree without having to start over again. And it's from there that I found the MS program at East Bay that really pointed me in the right direction. And so I did my work, I got my letters of recommendations, took my GRE, applied, and managed to get in. The process which I kind of accelerated by kind of aiming to get in at spring 2021 instead of fall 2021. Mostly because at that point, the startup that I worked at, while keeping myself busy when I took a half a year of a break from school after I graduated with an undergraduate degree, after that startup I worked for after that time was closing. It was suspending operations due to COVID kind of ruining their plans, and that meant that I wouldn't have a job or something to do. And I remember panicking because having something to do is what keeps me sane and keeps my mental health in check. And so I quickly scrambled and I decided, you know what, I'm going to work on this grad degree right away. I'm going to apply it. I don't care if I start half a year in a typical school year, but I'd rather be in it and have something to do than just sit around aimlessly doing nothing. So I applied quickly, and then I got accepted, and then I went into the program and started in spring 2021 taking statistical learning and natural language processing, which was pretty much the courses I could take because I think the other ones were requiring some prerequisites I didn't have. So taking those electives was probably the best I could do, even though I ended up going part-time, but it was something to keep me busy while I kind of figured myself out personally. And then it's from there that I started to really become more invested into the program and just really finding more opportunities to develop myself personally. As starting with fall 2021, we got back in person, I started taking classes more, and I started to meet my classmates, many of whom I really grown to care for. As we didn't just do study groups together, we hung out together, we went out to eat, we talked and hung out, shared memes with each other, even started a club at East Bay, the American Statistical Association student chapter, which is a place where anyone, doesn't matter if they're statistics major or not, or anyone who's interested in statistics can come together, get along with each other, meet and connect with each other, as well as meet fellow statisticians or just anyone working in the data science field, especially through workshops and conferences and all that stuff. So, it was just more than that. It was also community, like a family, as I mentioned in my previous vlog. And all these things that just really opened my eyes to just what could be out there in store for me, and just the material things that we all strive for. Making good money, getting a good degree, graduating good grades, and getting out. Things that are great, but are just one part of what makes life meaningful. As that other part was just human connection and friendships and all that stuff. A lot of which I've come to enjoy and be proud of. And now, doing all of that for a year, here I am right now, just having a pretty chill summer and just learning to be more emotionally content. As I move on and I'm having all these wonderful connections and Anyway, kind of lost my train of thought. My sister came in the room earlier, so I had to pause this. But anyway, now that I'm here, now it's the summertime. Well, I think as I'm having these wonderful connections and all of that, after a while, even though I still have some lingering insecurities in regards to whether I'm having enough friends and all that, I've come to a point where I feel that perhaps at the end of the day, it's okay to be lonely once in a while. It's okay. Because loneliness isn't always a bad thing. I mean, it can be bad if it's forced on you or that there's just too much of it. But once in a while, it's okay to have a little bit of loneliness. And loneliness isn't a bad thing. It could be an opportunity for you to reflect on your life and think about it. Opportunity for you to make time for yourself and enjoy yourself. And sometimes being around people can be mentally draining. So sometimes you need space from that. Sometimes just space for yourself. And sometimes you don't have to do anything in that space. Maybe just sit down, relax, and not have to always be on the hustle. So, and that's kind of one thing I've learned. Another thing is just that, that life sometimes, you're going to be feeling a little meh at times. Like, you're not always going to be happy and joyful and cheerful all the time. Sometimes you're going to have days where there is just meh. Just nothing interesting, sometimes unhappy, and sometimes that's just part of life. You're going to have some ups and downs, and it's not always going to be great all the time. And most of all, if you ever feel down, sometimes the best way to find purpose or meaning in your life, or just to feel happy and fulfilled, is to go out and help someone. Go out, see anyone needs help, connect with them, check in with them, or just something along those lines. Because that's one way to find purpose or just happiness or fulfillment in life, is to go out and help other people. And it can be things like how I'm doing these vlogs, so that way y'all can understand in some ways about what it might be like to be a MS Statistics student at East Bay, as well as hearing my story and my life experiences as a student. It could be, going on Reddit to answer some questions from students that are interested in doing MS Statistics at East Bay, and interested in hearing perspectives from people who've already been there and done that. And these are some of the things that I've done that I'm trying my best to do, that you could do to really make a difference or make an impact. And there's also others too. It could be checking in with your loved ones. It could be maybe checking in with your classmates or friends, see if they're okay, and maybe thinking of ways you can connect with them more meaningfully and more personally outside of the classroom, which is where a lot of the connections kind of form and really get a chance to come to life, as opposed to being confined to just simply in a very restrictive kind of environment where at the end of the day, you're just there to accomplish one purpose, and that is to do well in school. So there's just many ways in which people can go out to help each other. And all it takes is just exploring and really being conscious and committed to the well-being of others and just being curious about them. And I think that's one of the things that I've come to learn over time. As I find that at the end of it, that it's through community that you have the opportunity to not only understand the world better, but also in many ways to help yourself. I think there's a quote out there that goes along the lines of, the things that you work on building sometimes end up building you. So, yeah, that's something that I've kind of been thinking about for the moment. So, yeah. But anyway, I think this is probably a good place to end this vlog. So, I want to say for all you out there watching and listening, thank you all for listening. And I hope you all have a wonderful summer, and stay tuned for the next vlog. So, thank you and take care.